So the topic for the panel discussion today is cloud storage. Is it a threat or opportunity? I think the big question will be for whom, right? So I'm pleased to have a very good panel over here. Srinivasan from NetApp. We have Prasenjit from TCS and Prasenjit from Anindya from Veritas. Like I kind of hinted, right? So my first question will be threat and opportunity, right? Who are the stakeholders for whom it could be a major threat or opportunity, right? I mean, what kind of perspective do we want to kind of look at? And then we'll kind of delve a little bit deeper into it.
So I think this was a question in the NetApp's top management about 2 years ago. Should we consider cloud as a threat or an opportunity? So initially, NetApp even thought that should we go the cloud service provider route, where should we have an S3-like object store being offered, NFS-like service being offered by NetApp? But then it figured that, okay, this is not our play. So let's make it as an opportunity, and let's try to convert what we already have, what we are already good at, like having NFS and CIFS offered as a service on the cloud. Like, for example, there was a recent announcement by NetApp saying that we have cloud volumes where NFS and CIFS can be provisioned directly on Amazon, Google, Alibaba, and Azure. So it's definitely an opportunity as far as NetApp is concerned.
Yeah, it's a big question, definitely. But as we are from vendor agnostic company, so we are dependent on two ways. One is from vendor side as well as from customer side. So the thought is like from our organizations that cloud is an opportunity. Okay, so there is a couple of reasons I need to be highlighted here. But why we consider this an opportunity? Because definitely there is some need from specifically some application side which we have actually focused, because if you know the business, okay, you know the infrastructure architecture. If you know the nature of applications, you know the actual architecture of your storage. Okay, so there is a true word like your customer happiness is equal to performance, and performance is equal to your infrastructure. So how you going to tune your infrastructure is based on your experience, and definitely how do you deploy your best practices on infrastructure. So that is we wanted to address. So technology constantly evolve to address new use cases of modernizations of applications. Okay, so modern applications is always resource intensive, but at the same time we have seen that there is a unexpected data growth from terabyte, petabyte, and zettabyte. So there is always challenge to how to store the data. As we are in SNIA conference, we mostly focus on the data store. I'm not considering the security, encryptions, all these things. So importance, yeah. So very important steps you need to take in care on that, like how you address your customer, that if you're going for a completely digitalizations form, then how you're going to be address your all that unexpected digital data, okay, which customer is not ready to share his infrastructure in terms of what is the productions they wanted to always separate it. So the most important part is that we consider here that that data which they need to store, it should be utilized in a two form. One is in business form, and another form is the analyze the data for their business, customer experience, and process inside for new gen application, which is ML and AI. So these are the very difficult to measure in terms of compute, memory, and network and storage. So that is the reason we think that cloud is a very rich on features in terms of scalability and other ready solutions, which is an offering. So that could be the reason we consider this is an opportunity. Another very important, which I have to highlight it here, nowadays, most of the customer engagement which we have in any geo, so we figure out that customer is looking for vendor agnostic solutions in terms of both technology as well as locking. So locking either on technology and supplier. So what happened? They wanted to store the data, but wherever they wanted to restore based on the offering and based on the budget. So there is no constant that you store a data on a storage called A, that must be rely on that. It might be cloud, but if it is cloud, then which cloud? It might be GCP, might be AWS, or might be sometimes TCS own cloud. Yes, we need this environment which is called workload portability, which we can easily move the data to and from in any infrastructure with any storage architecture.
So if I summarize, both for systems integrator or the solution provider as well as for the end customers,
yep,
it's providing tremendous benefits, yes, going to cloud.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the last point I wanted to highlight, probably that is very effective, this DR as a solutions, which is very important for customer to run their business and justify their business continuity in terms of data availability. So we found that DR as a service is then significantly evaluated from the customer side in terms of operations cost and capital cost both. So cloud has given this opportunity. But yes, data security always one important part, but we consider that is also an opportunity for us. That's all.
So I think we can classify things into two parts. One is the application vendors and one is the storage vendors. I don't know too much about application vendors, so I won't talk about them. From the storage vendors again, most of the storage vendors provide the hardware. For them, cloud might be a threat because many of the storage things are going over to the cloud. Not too much because the amount of data is increasing, so surely there will be requirement for on-premise storage and things like that. But then there is another class of storage vendors who are trying to call it a software-defined storage or completely in software. And I come from an organization which belongs to that, Veritas is complete, always. And we always took a pride on saying that we are a heterogeneous company in the terms of hardware providers. We don't care where the hardware is coming from. Any hardware vendor, we can work on top of that. And for such a software-defined storage, I think cloud is an excellent opportunity because obviously it is adding one more layer. And even within the cloud, there are multiple vendors. And none of the organizations, especially the big guys, will want to tie to one of them. They will like to have multiple of them. And again, the heterogeneous story, whichever the software-defined storage vendors have, cloud adds one more. Obviously, we have to make some changes to our solutions to take into consideration the various characteristics of the cloud, but surely it is an opportunity rather than a threat.
Sure, thanks for your views on that and for seeing a lot of opportunities in this kind of development. I think we don't have a choice, right? So we do have to make the most of what's emerging and changing. We have to adapt and look at it as an opportunity. There's definitely, it does open up kind of a wide spectrum of areas you can go and look to make differentiation as well, right, from a competitive landscape perspective. The next point I want to kind of touch upon is mainly the threat, right? While there are a lot of opportunities, what are the biggest threats that you see? I know security will be one of the things, but again, there's a lot of work that's happening in that space, but what kind of threats do you see that we need to be conscious about while we kind of keep an eye on the opportunities and try to kind of solve the challenges over there. But what are the biggest threats in a cloud environment that kind of applies directly to storage and storage vendors?
So as I am with a security expert, so I am not going to take all the points. Only one point I need to be highlighted here, that is the data loss. So an accidental deletions by cloud service provider or any physical catastrophe like fire or earthquake, it can be lead to lose the data permanently. In that case, that cloud service provider or customer make sure that the backup of the data is in such a way that they can overcome this kind of situations. So that is very dangerous, I believe, because I found that nowadays customers agree, especially those are in running on OLTP applications. So they are running their business on their infrastructure. OLTP is running on-prem, but OLAP is running on the cloud because it's required huge storage space, computing resource, and memory to determine their next maybe what they are planning to do with their business. That will outcome from their analytics. So that part they need to be make sure that the data they are going to share, okay, that should be protected. So that's the point.
Sure. So let me give you an analogy. So I was just thinking that using this cloud is more like owning a house or renting a house, right? So do you want to own a data center? Do you want to buy storage and keep it in your backyard? Or do you want to just rent it by going to some cloud service provider? So if you go by that model, it's never so easy for us to go find a rented house. Isn't that so? Like in Bangalore, I'm sure it's the hardest, right? And who comes to help? The brokers. So there are a lot of brokers here as well. So when you say it's a threat, it opens up a lot of businesses and opportunities for these brokers in the middle. Like in my talk, I was talking about this cloud access security broker, where they play in the middle between an on-premises data center and the cloud, and they kind of say, give you, show you the hands and say that this is how your access control policies have to be rewritten. Likewise, I see a lot of such. The other one is third-party auditors. So the point that he made was, when you throw the data into cloud, how sure are you that the data is not corrupt? So there are businesses who do some third-party auditing for you. So you just throw the data, and you don't have to share the details of the data, but you give me some checksums, some hashes, and some parities and all those things. I'll go look up if the data is corrupted or not, or is it available, is it secure, is it confidential. I'll do the third-party auditing for you. So that's a broker thing. So there are a lot of brokering business in the middle, and I think it opens up a lot of businesses in the middle as well. So it's not really a threat, but I would say it's an opportunity again.
So just to define, so when you say threat, are you referring to the threat to the users who is using the storage, or are you referring to the threats from the storage vendors? Yeah. So for the user's point of view, I'll say, rather than the threat, I'll say them as challenges. Okay. And obviously, once all those challenges have been met, like the security might be a challenge, which the brokers or some third parties may be using it opportunity for new things. Till the time the challenges are made, people won't move to the cloud, right? Those particular vendors. So like even 3-4 years back, we said, okay, either new age sort of cloud applications are getting developed, but the standard mission critical applications, they were not moving to the cloud yet because of primarily 2 reasons. One is the security, one is the performance, right? So, but that is gradually changing over time. People are talking of hybrid cloud rather than a completely public cloud, completely private cloud, or completely on-prem. People are gradually moving towards that. We are even hearing applications like Oracle, which I think 3 years back, none of us thought, okay, Oracle will move to the cloud. Gradually, they are also considering. They're considering even their own cloud, right? So from the user's point of view, there are challenges still, which will go away. From the storage vendors, I think it is one thing which can be a threat is that many of the storage vendors has been making money and develop their solutions, keeping the on-premise storage, characteristics of the on-premise storage in mind. Now, some of those characteristics are changing drastically once the cloud is coming into picture, even the availability zones and things like that. The cloud itself is providing huge amount of reliability, like we have talked of 11 nines, which was the bread and butter for many of the storage vendors has been, or the performance is not the best, but somehow you have to manage it. From the storage vendors, that can be a threat. Some storage vendors will be able to hopefully go along with the tide and meet those challenges and change themselves. Maybe some will perish.
Okay, I'll open it up for the audience for any perspective or questions.
So when we are looking at more from a threat perspective, so are we seeing that, so enterprises, are you seeing that, are they moving on to the cloud right now? Or it's still the primary DCs and, I mean, they're still the internal DCs which we have, right? And they mentioned about Oracle is considering, or they're right now going on to the cloud also. So those enterprise applications, are we seeing any such kind of trends also coming on to movement from on-premise to the cloud, especially these kind of things. And yeah.
Maybe this time I'll go first. Okay, so I think what we have seen is two types of a trend. One, the applications which are tiering certain of their data to the cloud. The applications may not be moving completely to the cloud, they are moving some of the data to the cloud. And that we are seeing even for the backup applications, archival applications, they are saying, okay, I need to keep the data for too long. Why don't I use the cloud storage, including the Glacier storage and things like that for such a purpose? And then there is other sort of applications which are getting deployed in the cloud. And in those cases also, at least within our company, we are seeing not so rapid transition happening for the existing applications, but still few applications are gradually doing to the lift and shift sort of a thing. They're lifting from the on-premise and deploying in the cloud. But that is, at least what I have seen, it's not too rapid yet.
Adding with these points, couple of applications which is mostly running on DMZ zone, which is actually the web portal sort of things, that having the tendency of concurrent user may be more or maybe unpredictable. So that sort of applications customer is planning to deploy on the cloud. But yes, you are right. Some enterprise applications still is running on their own data on-prem system, because the compatibility and another word is interoperability. These two are very important to get the customer confidence that the way they are running their system for last 10 years, it should be going to be mixed and match with the new cloud environment. So that is still in progress state. So it is not even ready to move, something like that.
Sure. So I'm not talking from a NetApp as a storage vendor perspective. I'm just talking as an end user. So all of us have been using Outlook, right, as our day-to-day email client. Haven't we moved to Office 365 already? Haven't we moved to Word online, PowerPoint online, everything online, right? And we see SharePoint online, everything is online. So I think we're not just talking about test dev clusters being deployed in cloud and then spinning up and spinning down and all. I think even production workloads and production data and softwares and applications, they do move to cloud, I believe. So I think it's a trend.
So, I mean, but that's not mission critical kind of apps, is what you're saying.
I think it'll take time, right, for somebody to believe to move a mission critical app to.
So I think two things, right? For those who are slower on purpose because they have some concerns, the two answers are they're kind of adopting two approaches. One is the hybrid cloud model that's already been explained, and the second one is leverage all the goodness of cloud concepts and what cloud has to offer in a private cloud environment within their own organization. So I think that shift has definitely happened.
Storage vendors, because lots of customers and all, they are moving to cloud, getting the storage from cloud, computing from the cloud. But the vendors like us, like Dell, Dell EMC, we are providing the infrastructure to the cloud providers. So how you can relate to that, the threat for the storage vendors?
So yeah, this is like providing the infrastructure to the cloud. I'm not exactly sure, for example, like the AWS or the Azure and those things. I think many of them are developing their own infrastructure. They're not depending on the traditional hardware vendors or the thing to develop the infrastructure completely. Obviously, they'll buy the storage, they'll buy the networks and things like that, but the complete infrastructure management, they're doing on their own. So that's one area where I think it can be a threat to those sort of infrastructures. If I got your question properly.
Yeah, sure. The another thing is on the cost, on the threat side is like, so we hear it from our leaders, is like though the people are moving to the cloud, but one of the threat, or maybe it could be a burden to the customers, is like when their environment scales up and when they will need more storage, more compute and everything, their cost will be high compared to like they were running like 2 years back with low cost, and then their requirements increased. So their cost will increase when they are on the cloud compared to on-premise infrastructure. Any take on that?
Yeah, I'll just share mine and then Shini and others can chip in. Yeah, that's, I think, is a unknown in the cloud, right? So for example, earlier when we had the data center, we knew how much am I going to spend in my CapEx budget, because I have to think of it in the beginning, and I knew, okay, I'm spending this much will be my depreciation cost and things like that. With a cloud, at least that's what I hear, initial, and even somebody spoke yesterday in some presentation, in the initial phase, the first month bill is low. Users are happy. And you start using the cloud, you start accessing the data and things like that. But on the end of the third month, the bill you come, you're suddenly at a shock. So you can't plan completely maybe that well. And that's maybe because we are all new to this cloud setting, like how my budget will be. So that's, I think, is a concern to the users, and which is one of the factors I still think is prohibiting people from moving to the very actively used data into the cloud yet.
Yeah, I think from the cost perspective, we all know about this AWS calculator, the Google Cloud calculator, and all, where you just feed in that I use so much IOPS, I use so much cores, and all of those, and then this is the cost from a operating expense standpoint. And what the interesting part about the cost is that they also give you when is the break even. Like 3 years down, you will be spending as much money as you would have spent by buying your hardware. So they kind of extrapolate and show you that this is the amount of money you spend and all those things. But I will take it with a pinch of salt, saying that, okay, so they will kind of extrapolate to a region where they are cheaper than the actual cost. But you never know, right? It's something that you'll have to try it out. Otherwise, we really don't know the cost of it.
Just to add to that, and I don't understand economics that well, but one of the CIOs, that guy mentioned, there's a difference between the startups and the established companies because of the way the depreciation cost of the hardwares are computed. He sort of meant to say, because the hardware that we used to buy in a data center, and I can claim the depreciation, that used to have a positive effect in the balance sheet. Whereas for a startups, since there's no such balance sheets and things like that, it is not into consideration, and hence it helps. So I didn't understand his statement completely, but maybe some of us here understands those balance sheets much better than me.
Is the basic CapEx versus OpEx model, so you do have depreciation advantages in the former. All right, thanks for a very engaging crowd over here, and hopefully you've had a very fruitful 2 days and got a chance to network and enjoy the sessions. Thank you.